Thanks for everybody being here today and joining us for the tail end of practice. And glad that we had a little bit cooler weather for you out there at practice today as compared to what we've had the past 5 or 6 days. But you can see the guys are hanging in there and doing just fine. So, excited about where we are right now. We're about a week and a half in of a pretty demanding preseason camp, and certainly we have improved drastically since we started day one. Still got a long ways to go. Certainly we're not ready to play a game yet, but we don't play one until September 3rd, so we still got a little bit more time. But the important thing is the kids, they're keeping their foot on the gas and they're working very, very hard. They're all tired right now. Their legs are whipped, but they are pushing themselves daily and improving daily. And so we want to get through this week and really kind of finish up kind of the more grueling part of our camp. And then as we get closer to game day, start backing off their legs so we can be fresh and ready to go before the opener gets here. But just want to start out with that, and then just any questions from you guys regarding anything with roster, off season, preseason, upcoming season, all that stuff.
Coach, I want to get these questions all the way, so don't forget our
Sure.
friend Scott had a few questions for you today.
I can't recommend the right burger for him over at Jimmy Black's or Jack Black's or wherever.
He wanted me to ask you about Brent Thompson and how tough it's going to be to not have your right-hand man from your last two stops.
Well, yeah, we've been through a lot together. So, Brent and I both are adjusting right now. So it's certainly a different style of practice out there during preseason camp than what it has been in the past 7 years or so since Brent and I have been together. And I'm sure it's different for him, kind of running the ship down there in Charleston. So, but I think both of us are excited for the other.
Coach, if you would, you guys return an experienced group of wide receivers. If you would,
Yeah.
Just talk about your expectations for them, specifically your slot receiver, Rashard Davis.
Well, I think we do have some guys coming back that not only have ability but they have experience, and that's certainly very fortunate to have that. It's a good group. I expect a lot from them. I mean, I expect those guys to be leaders during the good times and the bad. I expect them to kind of set the tone and set the expectations for the way we're going to work, the way we're going to practice, day in, day out, consistency. And I think Rashard is everything that you could want with all those things taken into account. I mean, he is a dynamic player, but he is a hard worker on top of that. He is a great leader. You know what you're going to get every single day from him. You don't have to worry about him coming in and loafing one day or not having a positive attitude or I mean, he is just a consistent winner kind of guy. And so certainly I have a tremendous amount of respect and thankful to have a guy like him.
Coach, right here, Wolf Bolker, NBC 29. This is a two-part question.
Okay.
First part is just how do you see the quarterback competition shaking out? And then second is just what does the quarterback need to do in this offense in order to be successful?
Well, I think first, Brian started out with a pretty good lead just because of experience in the system, experience in the offense, and familiarity with the roster. I do think that Brian has benefited a tremendous amount from Connor being here. Ever since the day that I told Brian I was bringing Connor in, he's had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I've told him, I said, I want you to lose that chip because it's made him better. And I think he has started camp very, very well. He's playing at a very high level right now. That being said, I think we have seen probably the last 3 practices Connor really start to come on strong. He has been through the entire offense is installed. So everything he's doing right now, he's going through it for the second time. He's not making the mistakes he was making the first week. His arm is in shape now, and he's throwing the ball with more velocity and accuracy. So I think right now what you'd say is we have a very good quarterback in Brian Shore who's being pushed by another very good quarterback in Connor Mitch. Now what we need whoever wins that job to do, because that competition is going to go on for another week and a half or so. We need a guy that can lead our offense, a guy that everybody, when they step into that huddle or when they step out there on the field, they have that commanding presence. They can get us in the right formation. They can get us in the right check. They know where everybody's supposed to be. They don't get rattled. And then post-snap, they can distribute the football where it's supposed to go. Whether it's them keeping it on a quarterback run, or the correct run play, or putting the ball where it needs to be, with the wide receivers. Just the ability to get the ball where it needs to go and take care of it.
Coach, to add on about those quarterbacks, they both have varying different experiences. One
Yeah.
played in the SEC,
Sure.
one stepped up and started a few games last year here. How is that different experience benefiting each of them in practice?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, neither one of them are going to get rattled. They're both vets when it comes to having pressure on them. Certainly, Connor, when he stepped out and played in front of 70-some thousand fans when North Carolina, South Carolina played last year, and he's the starter and led South Carolina to the victory. I mean, that's a lot of pressure right there, and he performed well in that ball game. Brian, you're sitting there mid-season with a one-loss team that's ranked in the top 5 in the country, and all of a sudden you're the starting quarterback. That's a lot of pressure too. And so I think both of them have been in those situations to where whomever wins that job, you're not going to see them blink. The stage September 3rd is certainly not going to be too big for them. And so I think that'll give us a little bit of a calming presence there, behind center.
Coach, for your redshirt juniors and the seniors on this team, this is their third coaching
Yep.
staff that they've had to deal with during their career here. How have they handled the transition specifically? Is it something that you've noticed that they're taking in stride because they've done it before?
Well, the thing, we talked about it when I got hired. In fact, we talked about it this week, that there's nothing I can do about the fact that I'm the third head coach here in the last 4 years. It's not fair to them. They're the ones that, have, kind of been put in the toughest situation going in, especially the kids going into their last year of eligibility. But I have no control over that. They have no control over that. But we have been put, here together. And the big thing I stressed to them was I chose them. Our staff chose them. We all chose to be here. So we want to be here. We're here for the long haul. For them, I want them to have the most enjoyable, memorable senior year that they can possibly have. And I think that group has really been kind of the backbone of us sticking together and, having a pretty productive summer and preseason so far. And I mean, just when you're going to go through tough times during preseason, it's hard. I mean, and anybody that's ever been through it knows exactly what I'm talking about. Game day's one thing. That out there, day after day after day, many days, twice a day, is tough. And there's going to be some bumps in the road. But, you have guys like Gage Steele and Taylor Reynolds and Mitchell Kirsch, and Matt Frank, Rashard Davis, Brandon Rabbit. And you have all those guys that are such solid guys, such solid young men. That really has been the key to us making a pretty successful transition.
To kind of build on that question, Coach, what are your priorities taking over a program that's really been on the cusp of making a deep playoff run each year? How do you prioritize what you need to do to get ready for the season?
Well, I think the biggest thing is establishing what our style of play is going to be, and then establishing some stability. I've got a staff that's a quality staff. I'd like to keep them together. I'd like to keep them together for several years, because if you can do that, then you can establish some consistency with what the kids are being taught on a daily basis, and everybody knows what to expect, and so expectations are met better. Our style of play, we're getting there. I mean, I think you can watch our offensive line, and they play a little bit differently than the offensive line did last year. If you've been out for one of the early morning sled sessions with the offensive line, and me and Coach Powell standing on the sled, cheering them on a little bit. I mean, they're learning to play with their pads lower. They're learning to get off the ball better. We're playing with more physicality up front, and that's what we want to do. So, I think we're growing into our style of play. But, really that's the two big things. Established our style of play, and then some stability and consistency for the long haul.
Coach, speaking of that offensive line, Aaron Stinney, he's a guy
Yeah.
that started as a defensive end or defensive tackle. And
Yeah, I wish they had him back on defense.
got him on the O-line for the second straight year.
Yeah.
He looks noticeably bigger.
No doubt.
What have you seen from him in your short time together?
Well, I think number one, he's always going to be smiling. I mean, he's got a positive attitude, and he's a fun-loving guy. And, yeah, he is a big, strong sucker. I wish we could clone him, so I had him at 3 technique and at offensive tackle. But he's a very good athlete. He has, I got to see the film of him playing last year. So my first glimpse of him was in the spring. I think he has significantly improved since the spring. He is much more powerful coming off the ball. I think that's a credit to John Williams and our strength staff over the summer with what they've been able to do with his body. But to me, I think that, I got Mitchell Kershaw on one side, I got him on the other. I mean, I think we have two of the better tackles in the league.
Coach, just talking to some of the guys, they said one of the messages you had this offseason was getting tougher.
Yep.
What have you guys been doing specifically? When you say getting tougher, what do you mean? How do you apply that to the field, I guess?
Well, I think the big thing is them understanding that, we're going to go out and we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to it's hot outside, we're sore, it doesn't matter. We're going to do what we're going to do. And we're going to ask them to play a physical style of play on both sides of the football. I think they've embraced that. Are we where we want to be yet? No, we're not. But we're better than we were when we started. But I think it's establishing a mindset, establishing expectations, and then holding them accountable. And that those expectations are met, or there's consequences. But I think it's something that they want to be. So it's not something like we're pulling teeth or anything.
At this point in camp, do you have an idea of which freshman could play, which freshman probably going to redshirt? Do you have an idea yet?
I think we're seeing some guys come along that you can say, yeah, he's going to play this year. I mean, I think John Daka is one that's been pretty impressive. I think he could be impactful on special teams and there on the D line. John Kinney, I think you're probably going to see him out there. Maybe a couple of the freshman DBs, Adam Smith, Bryce McGinley. I think you could see those guys out there. On the O-line, Mac Patrick, who's had a good camp so far. I think more athletic than we anticipated and very powerful, for a freshman. So I think we got a good group right there of kids that have a chance to play this year as freshmen.
Is that surprising on the offensive line? You don't see.
No, you don't see that very often. And Jamal and I have talked about it a good bit. Because we had a great freshman that played for us last year, and it really took us until probably about game 4 or 5 before he was playing significant reps. I think Mac can play for us as a sub interiorly out of the gate, and then I hope a mid-season, maybe he's a guy that we can really rely on to be in a rotation.
Coach, can you talk a little about Andrew Ankara and kind of his strengths and abilities out there?
Well, I think Andrew has worked a lot since last season to improve his physical strength without sacrificing any of his explosiveness. He was a little light when we got here for what we want him to do. I think that we've shown him what he can be. Talking about some different guys that have played in this system before, and what they looked like and kind of what their skill set was. So I think he's excited about that. So he's put on 15 pounds of muscle. He is a very explosive, long, big athlete there on the edge. So, I think we're going to be able to do a lot of things with him. He's a lot of diversity with what he can do.
And with the new defense, talk about how the players are kind of adjusted to the new defense.
Well, their heads are spinning a little bit right now. We put in maybe 5% in the spring. I think everything's in right now, and we've had all summer to sit around and draw stuff up. So their heads are spinning a little bit. The big thing we got to do is we got to simplify it and focus in on some packages getting ready for Morehead State on September the 3rd. But I think they've seen success in areas, when they really focus on those areas where they're going to have confidence in what we're going to do. Now the big thing we've got to do is we've just got to make sure that we clean up all the mental stuff. So we got to get everybody out there on the field, everybody healthy, everybody practicing on the same page.
Coach, talk about your running backs, if you will. You've got 4 primary backs that are
right.
have some experience. Assess where they are coming into this camp and where they are at this point.
Well, I think if you ask me where they are today, certainly Carden and Khalid have separated themselves drastically from everybody else. Those two are – I don't know how many FCS teams in the country have 2 like that. I would say most people will be fortunate to have 1. They are special. They could play my offense we ran at the Citadel. They can play in this offense. I mean, they are powerful running backs. They have great feet. They run with great pad level. They're great teammates. You don't worry about them being late on the practice field. You don't worry about them loafing during a drill. I mean, they're the hardest workers. And so I think there's a reason why they've separated themselves. They're consistently day in, day out. You know what you're getting from those 2, much like I talked about Rashard.
Coach, talking about your 2 running backs, they're best friends, they're roommates, they've known each other since they were kids. Does that make them better players? Does that make the unit better?
I think with running backs, I've talked to both of them about this. In this style of offense, my one big thing that you always got to be careful about is sometimes the running backs can get the me-isms, I need the carries, I need this, I need that, and get the real ego trip. I don't think you see that from those two because they understand that they're both going to play. They want to see the other do well, and I think that I've cautioned to be very, very protective with that, just because I think they'll both thrive more if they can keep that selfishness out of their play.
Coach, in the preseason, 6 teams from the CAA in the top 25.
Yeah.
Obviously, your first season head coaching in the CAA, but just want to share your thoughts on how strong the conference is this year.
Well, I think you saw last year, we got 4 teams in last year from the CAA. Probably should have got Townsend also. So should have had 5 teams in the tournament last year, and that's pretty that's pretty significant right there. And 6 this preseason, the top 25. It's just every week you better be on your A game. We open up at Maine. That's going to be a tough game for us to win. Up there on the road, hard-nosed defense. We've got to be ready to play. So I think that just every week in this conference, you better bring your best, because if you don't, you're going to go home a loser. So it's just be ready week in and week out. But certainly, I think this is, this is one of the 2 best, if not the best, FCS conference in the country. I think you can easily agree on that, and I think everybody else would too. So it's an honor to be a part of it.
Coach, going back to the offensive line, specifically Stinney on the left side.
Yep.
In your full receiver sets, he's not going to have much help from a tight end or anything. How do you prepare a guy to win those one-on-one battles?
Well, I think that's where he's got to rely on his fundamentals, and he's fortunate to have his athleticism that he has. He played on defense. He played D-line. He understands. He understands a lot of what they're going to try to do. He's experienced. This is not his first time starting, but I think he has very good feet. He's long. He's got good power. His fundamentals, as long as he keeps from those breaking down, he should be fine. But certainly, certainly those 2 guys are going to be challenged, but they're both pretty good.
Coach, last year I know tackling was a bit of an issue defensively. So what have you guys done in camp to kind of improve that this season?
Well, you got to, number 1 is you got to make sure you're fundamental with it. How you approach it. Number 2 is you got to work it, and you got to have some success with it. Most of the time, guys that miss tackles, they either miss them because they're a poor athlete or they don't have confidence. It's one of the 2. So we got to make sure that we have guys that can play out there. So recruiting is going to be important as far as improving tackling, and then the guys that are out there, they've got to play with confidence and they got to play with the fundamentals. And it's something we're going to work on. Tackling and forcing turnovers are the 2 big keys that we're working on right now with our defense, and it's going to be that way probably all the way through the season.
Coach, you talked about your coaching staff choosing this team, and I know you spent a lot of time in preparing your staff, and I also know that you're big on coaching cohesiveness with your staff. Kind of talk about, is this staff coming together like you wanted them to with all they've been through, because it's been really a flurry since they all came together?
Yeah, I think that you walk through our building, through the offices, everybody gets along. Everybody's on the same page. There's going to be tensions, especially during camp. Camp brings out a lot of tensions in all of us. Me and the kids and everybody else. So, but I think this is a staff that understands that we've got to do this together. I don't want to be the team that wins because we're going to outscore everybody, and I don't want to be the team that wins because we hold the ball and give up 10 points a game and score 11. We want to be a team that wins together, offensively, defensively, special teams, playing together, and I think that unity within our locker room has to start with our coaching staff, and I think that it's reflected as it filters down.
Coach, just looking at you guys in the spring and then today at practice, you guys were going very high tempo. How has the team adjusted to that pace, and is there a particular pace you guys are working towards getting to this season?
Well, the one thing you guys saw today is today was the first day we've really went fast on offense. We want to go whatever speed we want to go. If we want to slow it down and snap it with 2 seconds left on the clock, we're going to have the ability to do that. If we want to snap it with 20 seconds left on the clock, we want to have the ability to do that. If we want to snap it as fast as we can get it spotted, we want to have the ability to do that. And so right now we're in the middle of conditioning our offense to be able to change speeds, and I think that's hard. Today you saw us run 2 different speeds during practice offensively. More of a standard speed and then a pretty fast pace right there towards the end. At the same time, we're also preparing our defense because they're going to see a lot of different variations of that, throughout the year in this league. So, I think that's what you see is we're conditioning them to be able to do whatever we want to do.
A lot of your past is in the triple option and the wing tee. Have there been any learning curves for you going to this kind of spread system?
I think with the way we practice, yeah, it has. With the triple option during preseason camp, you had to make sure you had good scout teams, because certainly, most of the time you're facing a spread team in game one. You've got to prepare your offense. You got to prepare your defense. They're not going to face the style that they're seeing from each other during camp. So you had to have good scout teams. The other thing is you also had to prepare them to face each other enough to where you could get that scrimmage element out of it. And so the thing that's changed for me is, before, whereas I would have scouts most of practice and you come together at the end, you have a live session at the end for 15 or 20 minutes. That's where you got your competition in. Is now, we're facing each other the whole practice. We're going against the spread the entire practice. So I think that you're seeing better quality as far as what they're facing throughout practice more consistently. I think the other thing is I've had to be more conscientious with the young kids and making sure they get reps, because with the ones and twos out there, sometimes they don't get as much work. So we've had to be conscientious to try to work them in. So yeah, it's been a learning curve for me when it comes to that.
Let's talk about your special teams a little bit. I know you've worked extensively on it in the week and a half that you've been together. Where would you assess your special teams play at this point?
I feel pretty good about it. Obviously, we have a long way to go. We're installing base schemes right now. Certainly, we're not anywhere close to being able to game plan that kind of stuff. But I think when you talk about our specialists, I think Gunnar Cain is punting the ball very, very well. He's, since the beginning of camp, he's much more consistent. Today he's consistently hitting it 47, 48 yards with great hang time. So he's having a good camp. I think we've got a real good competition going on with the place kicking job with Tyler Gray and Jeremiah McBride and Pat Frio. And then Jeremiah is also competing with Gunnar for the punting position. So I think it's going pretty good. It's probably going a little bit better than I expected. And I feel probably better about those guys right now than I did 2 weeks ago.
And kind of expounding on your return game. The
Yeah.
guys are going to be returning the ball. Who do you think you're going to see out there, at least initially?
We've got a lot of choices, so that's good. You go back looking at our receivers, and Rashard, he's certainly going to be involved in the return game. Charles Tutt, he's finally healthy. He's going to be involved in the return game. Brandon Ravenel, certainly going to be involved in the return game. Terrence Alls, just joined us, explosive athlete. Certainly he's going to be involved in the return game. John Miller, Khalid Abdullah, Carden Johnson. We have choices. So right now we're just figuring out who fits what area the best as far as punt return and kick return. But I think we'll have the ability, especially on kick return. I think a lot of people sky kicked and pooch kicked to us last year, to JMU last year. I think we've got the ability to put people out there in enough different spots to where you'll think twice about doing that, because okay, I don't want to kick to Brandon, but I'm going to kick it to Carden or Khalid. So choose your poison kind of deal.
Coach, you guys were picked to finish third in the CAA at Media Day. I don't know if you guys really pay attention to that stuff at all, but was there any discussions or reaction to that? Is it motivating at all?
Now, I think we were picked 8th in the SoCon last year, so those don't mean a whole lot. I don't know what Richmond was picked a year ago, but preseason stuff really doesn't have any weight. What matters is what you do once the games start. So we haven't talked about it a whole lot.
Coach, speaking of when the games start, I've covered CAA football for quite a while now, and JMU obviously has one of the best home field advantages as far as the crowd is concerned. What are you expecting the first time you step out in Bridgeforth Stadium and you hear the roar of the JMU band?
I don't know. I've heard it's pretty good, so I look forward to it. I'm probably as excited about that as anything. I look forward to being able to experience game day here at JMU, and certainly we have a great following of fans throughout the state of Virginia and the southeast and the northeast. I've felt the enthusiasm ever since I got here, with some of my travels and stuff. But I'm really looking forward to September the 3rd. I know our kids are too, but I can't wait to get to game day.
What one player has surprised you the most?
That's a tough one right there. Maybe Rashad Robinson at corner. I think that's a guy where in the spring I don't know that anybody separated themselves, but I think he's kind of separated himself a little bit. Now he's got Tutt and Curtis Oliver breathing down his neck and Jimmy Moreland, they're all breathing down his neck, but I think Rashad's been very consistent. I think he and Taylor have they form a pretty good pair there with our starters at corner.
Coach, obviously, no matter where you are, rivalries are a huge part of any season. William and Mary is always a big game. Richmond was huge last year. They're going to be good again
Right.
this season. What sense do you have of those rivalries so far?
Well, I know our fans, that's about all they talk about, so they kind of forget we got a bunch of games before then. So, certainly those games always carry, extra energy because of the fans. I think the big thing I try to preach to our kids is, you just take each week, you focus on that one right there. Certainly when they get to William & Mary, they get to Richmond, I don't have to tell them it's an important game. It's a big game for them. They know that. They hear it enough from fans and students and alumni. So I look forward to being able to compete and play in those games.
You told us, or told me, that hiring a strength and conditioning coach may be the most important hire that you made.
Yeah.
And it took a lot longer to get him in place.
Yeah.
But you hired John Williams, and he brought Marcus James in. In talking to the team, they seem to love these guys, but I know it's not easy for them. Just talk about what Big John and Marcus have done to get this team ready.
Well, I think number one, probably the most impressive thing has been watching John use his tremendous experience at a lot of different places to do exactly what we asked him to do with the players this summer. I felt like, and I told the kids, I felt like we were behind when we started in the spring. We were not in shape enough for spring practice. We did not achieve what we wanted to in the spring fully because of conditioning, and so that was a big push for the summer. And I thought they worked the kids, and the kids responded, and we had a great summer. And it's kind of continued on through camping. I rely on John for a lot of things. The three guys that see the kids, that see all the kids every single day, are Scott Cook, our athletic trainer, John Williams, our strength coach, and me. So the three of us, kind of have more of a feel of how the kids are doing than anybody else, because the position coaches, they're worried about their position. So I think that it's been just a great help to me having John because of his experience to not only take care of our strength and conditioning, but also to take care of our locker room. He's been fantastic. And Marcus is right-hand man, as loyal as it gets. I mean, they're one and the same. So you know what you're getting with both of them. But they've done a tremendous job.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Coach.
Thanks a lot for being here. Look forward to game day. Go Dukes.